All right, I'd like to call the Jacksonville Tourism Development Authority meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone that is with us today. We appreciate you being here, and as you can see, we are still practicing social distancing, the new word of the year. We have everyone spread apart, and we also have other members that are in a separate room that will come in, I guess, as they are to give their presentations. So again, thank you all for being with us today. First order of business is the adoption of the agenda that you have before you. It's been emailed to you previously. If there's no changes, I'll need a motion to adopt that, please.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Before we move forward, I do want to thank our staff members that are always adapting and changing to the times and to always making us comfortable and changing the rooms and the things that you all do to keep us moving forward with media and making sure that the public is still able to view our meetings. So thank you for doing that.
You have a great team.
Thank you. Next order of business is item number 4. It's going to be the approval of the minutes from our April 30th, 2020 meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion to adopt those, please.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. And now, item number 5, old business, Vietnam Veterans Visitor Center. Glenn, she is not here. No new information? Okay, thank you so much. And then we'll move to item number 6, our Visitor Experience Enhancement Project. We have Deanna Treble with us today. Deanna, thank you. And I'll turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Well, good afternoon, everybody. So this afternoon, I would like to talk about some of the projects that I've been working on, specifically related to the visitor experience. Those 4 projects that we've been focusing on since, I guess, the beginning of the year and then some, is the Beirut Memorial Grove signage project, the wayfinding, Lejeune Memorial sign, and the gateway signs. And so I'm going to start off the presentation giving you kind of an overview of where we're at, and then leading into some possible options and moving forward with regards to funding. So just as a recap, we started off this fiscal year and the proposed spending plan totaled about $525,000, and it was primarily broken up with the 4 projects that you identified. We have, our focus primarily has been on the Beirut Memorial Grove signage project and the wayfinding project. And the other 2 that we're kind of working on is the Lejeune Memorial sign and the gateway sign. So to acclimate everyone again, where the Beirut Memorial Grove signs are going to be placed, it's in the triangle that was created with the construction of the Jacksonville bypass. And so area 1 is the area towards the south of your screen, and that is easily accessible. There's a driveway off of that road. It is flush with the ground, it's easy access. Area 2 is north of the screen, and that was going to be constructed on top of the hill. And when we were putting this project scope together, we envisioned that the contractor would be constructing this from that right-of-way, because they're going to be cutting out some of that hill embankment to build the sign. You'll find out in just a minute that didn't exactly prove what we were thinking as far as the actual construction. So this project, as remember that it is a 50-foot, there's 2 signs. Each sign is 50 feet in length, and it is about, the sign faceage is a little over 4 feet. We've got the City Hall color brick, we've got a concrete stone cap, and it's surrounded by landscaping, and both signs are kind of, they're embedded into a buildup of the ground. So it looks like it just disappears into the side of the ground there. So we advertised the project. The first time we bid it, we didn't receive a single bid. So in competitive award, as compliance with North Carolina General Statute, we bid it out again. And the second time, we received 1 bid. And so this 1 bid actually far exceeded our available budget, which started off at $100,000. And so at that point, staff took a step back and tried to analyze why? What happened? Why is the estimate so much larger than the actual bid? And so we looked at it from a multifaceted approach. So the first thing that we did was we reached out to the contractor and said, can you give us some insight as to, what's behind your numbers? What did we miss when we put the estimate together? And are there any possible deductions that we could consider to try to make the difference up between what we have budgeted and what the actual estimate or his construction estimate was? So unfortunately, the deductions he offered only totaled about $20,000, and they weren't substantial enough to really impact the project. And these deductions were really going to affect long-term maintenance, and it also would impact the way that the look of the sign. And as you might recall, that this sign, the look of this sign is the basis for our gateway signs and some other signs that we're working on. And we felt that roughly $20,000 wasn't going to make that much of an impact to what we really needed to close that gap. We also talked about how would the contractor construct these signs. And he agreed that area one, that one that we saw on the screen that was towards the south, that's going to be the easiest to construct. It's level ground, site accessibility is easy. But what we ran into problems is on the second sign. And remember, I told you it was going to be built on top of the hill, and we thought the contractor would kind of stage from the right of way and build. Well, that wasn't possible. What we found out is that it would be between delivery of materials and the site distance or the site clearance required that DOT would need and staging your equipment, it was going to be problematic and actually would cost more for them to set up and take down on a daily basis those temporary road closures or merge lanes. And so we talked about, well, if you had to build it from within the site, what would that look like? And so if you can imagine how big the sign is, the concrete, the CMU, the weight of the brick, and we were just going to tear up that site conditions, that the weight of the machine driving back and forth. And also, which we didn't know when we put the estimate together, that area is very wet. And we also have an irrigation system that we have to be cautious of. And so we reached out to Parks and said, can we do a joint effort? What are you willing to do? What can the contractors willing to do? And bottom line is, yes, we'll work together, but we feel that at a staff level, we weren't comfortable coming before the TDA and asking for concurrence of award, knowing we were that far off in price. So we said, okay, well, we really need to probably rebid this. And so the second item that we did was we looked at who are our potential plan holders, who would be interested in bidding on this project. And so we were able to identify 5 more firms. We reached out them. We directly solicited them, meaning we sent them, we really want you to bid on this project. Here are the plans and specs. And we did get some traction, so we felt pretty confident that we were going to get at least another bid. And we did get concurrence from that single bid that he would also be providing another bid. Then we also, the third thing we did was we said, let's look at his estimate, the single bid we got compared to our independent estimate that we did, and let's compare the two. Well, what we found was the estimate that we had put together initially was done primarily with an outside engineering firm. I had the pleasure of recently constructing a similar sign as far as a masonry sign for the Sturgeon City Environmental Center. And so I was able to look at that actual cost. I came up with a cost per square foot and applied that methodology to our sign here at the Beirut Memorial. When I did that, the estimate, my revised estimate and the contractor's estimate was within $15,000. So I felt pretty confident that maybe our estimate was just not a good estimate to begin with. So what we decided was, let's rebid the project. We feel like we have a better estimate. We put in the bid documents that the staffs in the city of Jackson was willing to work with the contractor. We extended the construction date to give them more time. And we reached out to those additional contractors. When it came time for the third bid to be received, we didn't receive a single bid. And so I reached back out to the contractors and, said, well, what happened? And so the one contractor couldn't get a masonry firm to commit to the project. And my single bid that I did have forgot about it. But because we rebid it so quickly, in reality, the bid I did receive is still valid. per our contract documents. So we really felt like we're in a situation where we have a project, we have an estimate, but we're not quite sure if we're ready to proceed forward, given how much we are off between the estimate and the actual construction price. So the option that we have right now is I'm just presenting the information, and we're going to come back to possible options and how to move forward. Does anyone have any questions on that particular update? Okay. So the next project that obviously we're working on is the wayfinding signage, and you'll see on the downtown wayfinding signs, those have been constructed or erect on temporary poles. And yes, we know they're too high. We're going to be working on getting those down to a more reasonable height here in the next week or so. But what I really would like for you to focus on is if you hear any feedback, maybe the signs are in the right location, the wrong location, because that's the purpose of this being a temporary location, is we can easily move it. And in a little bit, probably about another 30 days or so, we'll start working towards putting more permanent poles in. Also we're looking at redesigning the wayfinding signs that's within the DOT right-of-way. You may recall that we had come up with a fabulous design, but when we looked at the cost of construction, it was going to be cost prohibitive. So we've come up with a potential new look, and we'll be bringing that before your consideration in the next month or so, maybe, I guess, 2 months when we meet again. The initial budget for the wayfinding signs is $125,000, and to date, we've spent a little over $28,000, and that is, again, primarily focusing on the downtown signs and the poles. We have not proceeded forward yet with the DOT signage. On the Lejeune Memorial Gardens, this was the initial concept that we started with, and I think everyone liked the look and feel of the actual sign itself. Unfortunately, the location turned out to be a little more problematic. So in this area, Montford Point is actually a Department of Defense road. Lejeune Boulevard is a Department of Transportation, and then we have obviously the Marine Corps base property. And so in this triangle within this area, it became problematic because when we started talking between the two entities, everyone kind of wanted each other to take the lead. And as you know, if we build anything of permanent structure on Camp Lejeune property, that has to go through a very lengthy process of approval. Additionally, in this area, there is underground infrastructure improvements. We have stormwater, there's a water line, a fiber optic cable. And in this area, it's very low lying. So whenever we get a lot of rain, water sits there. And so anything we would do in this area, we felt that we would have to build up this area. About 3 of those Bradford pear trees would have to be demolished in order for this sign to come up to be built. And so we felt that maybe let's look at some other locations to see if it's more viable for construction. And so I know that they're seeing this for the first time, but this is just a preliminary concept of what a sign could look like at the Lejeune Memorial Gardens. It has the same look and feel as the Beirut Memorial signs. It is actually potentially sited for just left of the main entrance to the Lejeune Memorial Gardens, but to the right of the entrance for the Beirut Memorial. And it is a curved sign. It is about 16 feet in length, 4 feet 9 inches in height. Again, the same look and feel. This would be installed within Department of Defense right-of-way. We have already had preliminary conversations with Camp Lejeune that if we were to build it within the right-of-way, that we would not have to go through a lengthy approval process or an easement or anything like that. The environmental documents are still valid on hand, and so anything within the DOD right-of-way, it would be much easier to construct. And on the gateway signs, there's two locations that the city is working on at the moment. They are at the corner of Piney Green and Country Club and Empire and 17. Through the construction of the Piney Green project, that DOT has given the city about $500,000 to make some improvements. And so those are the 2 areas that we're focusing on. We are about 80% done with design. Although the DOT is on hold with funding, we are still proceeding forward with getting the project approved and just, it'll be, in essence, bid ready once the DOT allows us to proceed forward with advertisement. So again, all the funding's coming from North Carolina Department of Transportation, and the gateway signs that the TDA had mentioned is not yet, we have not identified what that next site is, and we are adding the TDA logo to this site. Both gateway signs, again, have the same look and feel as the other signs, except for this is not, no, they are both curved signs. They're just, the one at Piney Green and Gateway, I'm sorry, Piney Green and Country Club is much larger in scale than the one that would be constructed at Empire and 17. So with that update, and as we start the conversation towards what Glenn's going to be discussing as far as the financials, is that I wanted just to kind of put this in your I guess for thought and consideration is, you know, I've been working on the 4 projects, and that's what was the direction given, you know, at the beginning of the fiscal year. And maybe our priorities, or your priorities, excuse me, have changed. And so just keep that in mind as we could talk about funding moving forward, because out of the 4 projects, the Beirut Memorial Sign Project and the Wayfinding Project are very much further along in the process than the Lejeune Memorial Sign and the Gateway Sign Project. So with that, I've identified 3 options, and I would like to discuss the options, and then Glenn's going to talk about the spending plan, and then we'll come back and talk about it holistically, both the options for moving forward on the projects and how it relates to the spending plan. So I've identified 3 potential options. Obviously, whatever direction that you give, we can also consider. Is option 1 is that, in staying with the 525 that was approved under the FY20 spending plan, is that we can move forward with the construction of 1 sign for the Beirut Memorial Grove. If we do that, I would recommend that we focus on area 1, the one that was the easiest to construct. I also am proposing that we reduce the amount of funding from 125 to 75,000 for the wayfinding, and likewise for the Lejeune Memorial Gardens. And those reductions in budget is to better reflect the opinion of cost that we have for both of those projects. And that would leave just the balance would be rolled over to the Gateway Sign project. So that's option 1. Option 2 still keeps with the 525 as the balance for the FY20 spending plan, but now we're kind of shifting all the money towards the Beirut Memorial Groves and taking away from whatever that future Gateway Sign location might be. And then option 3 is, during our last meeting, Glenn presented and proposed FY21 spending plan and identified that spending plan for the visitor experience at $325,000. And so option 3 better aligns with that budget, where we would be focusing on the construction of 1 sign. Both the wayfinding and Lejeune Memorial signs are reduced to that $75,000, and that we roll over the balance of that which is left of $46,000 into the Gateway Sign project. And so I can certainly answer any questions now, but it might be best if Glenn kind of discusses his spending plan, and then we can kind of regroup.
All right. Well, Authority, we did want to talk to you about that. We went over this last time, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the detail of it as we did before, but I do want to tell you what the headline is here. And that's that clearly we knew we have a diminishing fund balance that we've been borrowing out of to do some things in the promotion money, the pink money as it was. And we now have to, you know, future spending needs to be much less for this fund so we can live within what we're getting here. Now, the high priorities that you identified were those strategic initiatives, the partner support that we have, and your direction for specific actions that are in there to be done at the time. So toward that end, we have the 4 categories of the Tourism Promotion Fund. And we're talking about overnight stays, obvious, and I won't go through all this, but basically, we've kind of kept to the same thing that we have for FY20, for 21 in there. And just to show that, here's where the funding would be for the Grand Prix, the funding for the Alley Temple and the Final Touch models, Mind, Body, Soul Empowerment would not be funded for next year. There's not a sponsor for that at this time. And then large community benefit, some overnight stays, that's Jacksonville's Jamboree, which did not occur this year. And toward the end of that, these items would be funded, which was the differences from what the F-19 relationship is. It's the same relationship that we have, the amount of funding for the current year of funding. So the awards would go to 10 at 97,000, reserve, just hold that in there. We're not gonna take the whole 10,000 again, we're just gonna put 5, which we've not spent this year either. And then support administration at about $9,500, which is less than what we have done in the past in there. As a matter of fact, what we also talked about is the strategic initiatives. Several of you have told me that you believe these to be very strong. We kept the reunion project, the sports development project, the tour development, and the Onslow Bridal Expo, as well as the Arts Council development project, all at the same. We did decrease the docent project, and the business meeting development project was also, as we had intended to do that only for a short period of time. So that's where that went. And then for the strategic implementation, the consultants, Teresa Beecham and Susan Dozer, and then between them, and then we have the familiarization tours that we're gonna do with the media, the website improvements, some special promotions. Sometimes we have to throw a little money at some of the promotions we do. And then the median space optimization. This is sharing information amongst our tourism community about what's booked, what's out there. And so the chamber is involved in that. We have obviously Sturgeon City is on that, so people can see when that facility is booked. And hopefully this year we're gonna be able to roll out so that you hospitality managers can look in there yourself and see if it's booked for a date that you might be considering. Continue with the Sports Development Fund, partner support, special events, reserve, advertising and branding, and state partnerships, which obviously we have done a lot in the state partnerships, and this year, we're really seeing the value of being a good partner to that as it was. So that leaves us with budgeted revenue at $975, the administrative fee, the net for distribution you see there. This is exactly from your budget that you adopted at the last time. This is the real money stuff. And that we would have available for funding $316,435, which is the 33%. Now, in order to fund the spending plan, we'll have to go with 557. And that number reflects what is the number that Deanna has indicated is for the new fiscal year would be the top amount of money. Remember, the big key here is that you can make some expenditures out of this current fiscal year, but we also now can divide something into the next fiscal year should you really desire to do so at the time. The problem is we have about $350,000 in unspent funds in the pink money at this time. So the spending plan obviously can't bring forward any more than what you already have. Now, we believe that the spending plan, which is not budgeted money, this is the money as you told us to go and spend it in this manner, we've identified about $300,000 we're not gonna spend out of that. But that's not gonna accrue to your fund balance. It's just in the spending plan, we're not gonna spend it. And you have 2 more months of revenue that are to come in. And hopefully, we'll see some improvements, or at least not any degradation of what we already have seen for the current month as it was. So that leaves us at a place of saying, what's an option to look at? And she presented option 1, which is the one sign as it was. And the idea here would be that you would construct the one sign, do that type of work. That goes for that 525 and works that in. The option to really make that work, since we don't have the 525, is to use some of that fund balance that we have now and what we come and authorize the construction of one sign right now. Get the time in. This allows, one thing Deanna did not mention was if you give authority today, they believe they'll have them done by the time that the Beirut families arrive in October. And then you could authorize the directional signs because they've started this project and they'd like to see it come to some sort of fruition, and there's work underway for the NCDOT signs as it was. You could reserve funds for the Lejeune Memorial Gardens. On the gateways, putting $46,000 next to it or other, I mean, they all agree that's not gonna do much. So you could just hold on the gateways until you actually had some money. So this is what would happen here. The Beirut Memorial Grove signs at 129, we've already spent $13,800, in as a part of the project there as it is. And then the directional signage would be 46,600. She mentioned 75,000, but we've already spent 28,400. So that adds up to $217,800. We would then, under FY '21 spending plan, put your reserve in there for the Lejeune Memorial Garden sign. And that's where that would be to make a sign there. This impact on the '25 plan would now say that you didn't have to bring up from reserve, but $323,000, which is what you have now. And of course, you're kind of betting on what's going to come in the next 2 months if you decide that you want to tap into that reserve, what's in there right now as it was. So option 2, that's the 2 Grove signs. And that says that obviously that this is the slide just as she had presented it there with 239. It says the funding comes from current year funds, and you would authorize the directional signs, reserve funds from Lejeune Memorial Gardens, hold on the gateways again, and it does have a much larger impact on the fund balance. It would likely zero it out from that end of the matter. So we would, follow your advice and counsel of what you want to do on that. This is how the notes flow on the 239 with the design cost and the 327,800 that you see to construct 2 signs. Then in FY '21, you'd put some reserve in for the Lejeune Memorial Garden signs as it was. And this is how you'd have to bring up the 323 because that's what you got to bring up for the spending plan because it adds to that 325 number that you have there. Excuse me, the 525 number. This is the spending plan option 3. This one is the one that has the lower spend. And it would propose that you would basically, if you spent the money now on the Beirut Memorial sign, one sign, you would encumber that money. And the FY '21 says you would deal with that at that time in the future. Your wayfinding would be encumbered. The Lejeune Memorial sign could be taken at 75,000, and your gateway sign, whatever you want to put to that as it was. So this one authorizes 1 Beirut Grove sign now. I should have taken the S out of there, shouldn't I? And authorize we've done a lot of back and forth on this. Authorize the directional signs funds encumbered and reserve funds for Lejeune Memorial Gardens, hold on the gateway, and it does have a lesser impact on the fund balance, but it really hits it pretty hard on the matter. So that's kind of where we are at this moment. And obviously, it's time for you folks to discuss. And what we're proposing that you do is to decide, what are your priorities? What questions might you have on any of this stuff? But we kind of wanted to give you a financial view at the same time that you got this view here.
Thank you, Glenn. And Deanna, thank you so much for all the work that you're putting into this. It's not an easy task, I know. I'll just make a couple comments and then I'll open it up. Being in the sign business gives me a little bit of a perspective on costs. And $200,000 for those 2 signs is just an exorbitant amount of money. I mean, I'm not sure. When you guys go out for bid, do you go to construction companies? Do you go to sign companies? How do you do that?
I think we primarily focus on construction companies, ones that we're familiar with, but that is certainly another option that we can consider. If we wanted to go back out for rebid, we can do more of a targeted audience, such as the sign companies.
Yeah, and that may be an avenue because I know that you can build these 2 signs for $100,000. I mean, based on just what I know about building signs and what this looks like in terms of construction costs. Your aluminum letters are going to be somewhere in the area of $10,000, and then everything else is foundation and brickwork. And I can't imagine $100,000 worth of brickwork on a 40-foot by 4-foot low to the ground monument. And I understand there's some, topographical challenges, but again, that's just my opinion. I think that's extremely high in the market for what we're getting. And then the other concern that I personally have is the location of the Memorial Gardens sign. I I'm not comfortable with building a sign on the side of the road. While one may be nice there, it should not be the flagship sign for the Grove. And I think we need to do some further work to see and determine what it would take to get it on the corner where it really belongs, as you enter and see the Grove. I understand there may be some challenges there, but, again, I think, you know, for me, in light of where we are right now with COVID-19, uncertainties in budget, just like our city council budget, you know, I think I would propose that we move forward with the directional signage because we're already involved in that, and I think we can afford that. But to commit $500,000 in these times, I think is unnecessary. We waited this long, not to prolong it, but maybe just hold off a little while and just see how the revenues come in and whether tourism spikes back up, because we know we're gonna see some downturn. And instead of depleting our budget, you know, maybe waiting a little bit to see how things fall out, just like we did with the visitor center, and now something better may come of that. But that's just a personal opinion. I'll open it up to the board members and ask for their direction.
Well, first of all, I want to compliment the city staff for the work that you've put in. I know how frustrating it is to believe that you have something in hand and then it just kind of falls apart because of things beyond your control. But it sounds to me like you guys have gone beyond, you know, prudence in just trying to figure this out and make the budget work and make everything work. Having said that, I tend to agree with the chairman. I would be reluctant to put two signs out there at the present time. And I also agree with the chairman that the location for, you know, the gardens is not, in my opinion, a good location. You know, I do understand that we're dealing with some entities here that are not as flexible as we'd like for them to be, but you know, I'd take a step back and try and figure this one out again. So, and certainly in these uncertain times, especially in the tourism area where we know we're depending on the money coming in for the occupancy tax, I'm not in favor of dipping in any further than we have to take care of what we already have on the board until we see where we're going. And that's probably going to take another 12, 18 months. So that's my position.
Yeah, and Deanna, obviously, just to follow that up, I mean, that's a lot of work. You and the team in the city have always done a remarkable job in that area. And I agree with the chairman and the vice chair regarding the signage and reserving what funds that we can in this particular circumstance.
Yeah, well, I will definitely say that you guys have done a wonderful job in trying to simplify a very complex set of issues. However, I do agree with, because of the uncertainty of the revenue in the future, that we need to pull up a little bit and take a step back. You know, the possibility of having one sign is doable. Two is nice, but may not be necessary. But the only thing that I see is the lack of bidders. That I really feel that with a project like this, we should be able to get more competitive bidding in here and not that I have anything against the one person that bid it or company that bid it, but we should be able to have 5 or 6 or, you know, some companies to select from. So I'm asking that we step back as well. I think to defer this is the proper thing to do, so I would agree with the chairman.
I've got nothing good to add to that. I agree with everybody.
I'd like to hear from everyone if you don't mind. So.
Well, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said, and I'm in concurrence with everything. I just don't have anything smart to add to that, really. Agreement.
Deanna, and I have another comment about the budget, but I'm not sure that we need to do it in this segment, but what is it that we can do for you today in order to keep the wayfinding signage moving forward?
If you put it in this year, or, I mean, you've got money in this year, so you already have that. We would then reserve the 46.6 for next year, correct?
Yes.
We would just put into that visitor experience page, we would just put in there the 46.6, which is the $75,000 less what they've already spent. No, it's the $125,000 less, isn't it? Excuse me, it's 46.6, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's 46.6.
So what do you need? You need a motion to,
One of the things we are asking you to do is to tell us which spending plan you would like to do and to tell us to authorize that. So what we would, and let me get Gail, make sure I can get good eye contact here because I don't want to go off, is you've selected the option that you want for the project. Right now, you want to reserve 46.6 for the next fiscal year
For wayfinding.
operation. So we would just change that, and that would change to the lowest amount possible that we'd actually bring aboard as fund balance, which would be lower than the 350 number. Do you agree, Ms. Mays?
I think that's correct. We do have a proposed budget amendment in here that I think we will not need to adopt now. If you're gonna defer the signs, we'll defer that.
the other,
until-
the other thing, and I'll just mention it now, whether it's appropriate or not, in terms of the spending plan that you talked about, I am a little bit concerned about if you can flip back to that.
We got that. Which one are you?
That highlighted the spending,
17.
just for, okay, go back.
Well, these are the options, so I'm gonna go back. This is
Back,
the
back
actual.
one, where it had the reunion project. I'm concerned about the reunion project funding,
Oh, that's in the strategic initiative.
strategic
Hold on, I'll
initiative.
get
I'm
there.
not sure if that's
that
encompassing in the
keyboard in front
motion. I know we've allocated, this is our second year for the 35,000
It would
and
be the third.
third year, I apologize. And I'm a little bit concerned about that expenditure and I really like, again, we're in times that are different than before and funding is not as good as it's been in terms of revenues. And we need to make sure that that project is moving in the direction that we intended it to. And so I would like to get a full report for this board in terms of what's been accomplished and what's intended to be accomplished with some milestones of achievements in order to continue this budget, allocation. Again, we've got to look at what we're doing and how we're spending, and we got to ensure that, in my opinion, we've got to ensure that we're getting what we're paying for. And that, what we set forward has been done. And we're in year number 3. We need to evaluate it. I know there's been some personnel changes at the chamber and no discredit to that. But again, we need to ensure that we're getting what we expected for the amount of money that we're allocating. And that would be a consideration for me moving forward with that budget allotment.
So it's not the intent of the work.
Not the intent of the work, it's whether we're getting results from the expenditure.
All right.
Have we
Just
spent-
like we do for our events.
Absolutely.
Have we spent the 35 each year?
Yes, we have. We have spent that money. Now, to the end of that, and in full disclosure, the chamber did offer to suspend some of the payment that we give to them for that. And we basically felt like that it was kind of a package deal for a year and that you can just do that because we pay them all at once for that fund.
For that particular fund. Well, again, it is, our responsibility up here to ensure that the monies that we spend are being spent in the right direction. And so accountability is one of my pet peeves, and I want to make sure
We
that
can take care of that.
we're holding that accountable.
So one of the things that we're about to do is give you direction. And our direction should be the options that you've presented or amendments to the options.
Well, it sounds like that the desire is to proceed forward with the wayfinding project and the other initiatives are temporarily on hold. And so I guess what I'm hearing is with the uncertainty of revenue, we're just not quite sure when we're ready to maybe, resume work on those projects. And so we can just put those on hold and maybe kind of regroup in the next couple of months when maybe the economy is kind of rebounded. And then if the desire of the board is for us to resume work on that, we can certainly start.
And as Gail will say, this isn't your last opportunity to do something in the next fiscal year. It was your opportunity to put it in the spending plan or things like that as it was in reserve, but you folks control that.
We can amend it a month
Absolutely.
from now if we want
It's your
to.
direction.
All right.
So what we would ask you to do is the spending plan as presented with the one caveat of holding on the reunion project and that the 46.6 would be in on the visitor experience enhancement. Would they be the only changes that you all would desire?
John, is that accurate? Just want to make sure we're good with it, with the motion.
I think Glenn needs action on his spending plan, number one.
Yes, we want to have approval on the spending plan. You've given direction now on what you want for that, so we'll put the 46.6 into the next fiscal year's budget so they can spend that because they have the power to spend money that's in the plan right now. And obviously, anything they spend would be reduced from that 46,600.
You're saying, Deanna, y'all need a budget amendment for the 46?
No.
No action
No,
needed
it's
there.
already in the current spending plan
So you just need approval of the spending plan with
for
the caveat.
FY '21.
The caveat that, the reunion money's not to be spent until further information is
Correct.
given. And of course, all those projects are on hold except for the wayfinding sign. So a motion to that effect should handle it. Is that?
Yes.
Do I have a motion?
Yes. I so moved.
In a second. Any other discussion? That is the intent of the board.
Yes.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Indiana, this, again, no reflection on, you've done a
No.
tremendous amount of work.
Oh.
And I think it's definitely something we're gonna continue on.
Yep.
At the right time.
I'm happy to serve at your leisure, so we can resume discussions when appropriate.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a question before you leave, and I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have, well, I don't want to say it that way, but do you have an opinion as to why we didn't get more bids?
Well, if it's anything like when we bid Jacksonville Station, I think most of you are familiar with the Jacksonville Station, our new multimodal facility. That was over a $10 million project, and when we went to receive bids the first time, we didn't get a single one. And really, it became down to timing. And so I think that a lot of contractors and subcontractors are uncertain about how COVID's gonna impact the supply and delivery of materials, the labor. And so I think that either trying to get a response from the subcontractors is difficult, their uncertainty as far as how long the project's gonna last. And so with that in mind, we try to convey to the potential bidders that we're one big team, we're here to accomplish the same goal, we're willing to work with you. But I think that, the chairman brought up some valid points about maybe looking at it from a different angle, looking at signed contractors. And when appropriate, we'll certainly dive into those details and see if we can identify other contractors. And then perhaps maybe we just need to have a longer bid period. I mean, we gave them, all three times, we gave them on average 25 days, but maybe we need more time. I mean, those are all the things that we would have to consider when we, pick up this project and resume work on it.
And you definitely want to go out to sign contractors, because that's right up their alley. They would take on the whole project
Okay.
to include the masonry part. They'll do the whole thing. There's many contractors that would probably bid even outside the state. There's some large companies that would definitely probably bite at it. Just something to consider.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna have a cast change now. With Teresa Beecham coming up, and we're
Glenn,
gonna
did we
be-
cover 7 as part of that?
That's the spending plan.
the spending plan.
Right, so we covered 6 and 7. Now we're moving on
What
to,
8 was you come back and make a decision on it, was 8.
so we're on item number 8.
We're on number 9 now.
Okay. All right.
We're gonna be quick here.
No worries. Thank you so much. Item number 9, COVID-19 and tourism promotion.
Big thing is we're going to show you in multiple ways here, but in succinctness, the summer travels now is going to be challenging. The feelings about road trips is that could bring people higher. Basically, what we're going to see now is a limit of about 500 miles. People are avoiding planes and trains and stuff of that nature, and they want to travel, but they're not. This just came out today from the Robert Half company. They survey just employees of major companies. And what it is here is it says that 37% will take some sort, can't see it, it's so small now, will save their vacation time for another year or so. And that 28% will take fewer days off. I think the real point here is over on the right, what the boss is saying, that 66% haven't said anything about vacations or anything. 25% of them have said they've encouraged employees to take time off. And 9% said they were discouraged from taking time off. So this is where it is. The takeaways here is that vacation is still the biggest thing people want to travel for. Dining, weekend giveaways, planning, family and friends is very high in this type of thing. Conventions, way low off the deal here. And on the safety guidelines, we're now at 52% of the people say they're going to consider that before they consider anything else on the matter here. So the key takeaways, personal safety issues are still high as a barrier to travel. National economy concerns are also driving travel decisions. 2/3 of the travelers indicate they're going to hold off on travel until the next time as it was, and that we're going to see something about that Americans miss travel and they can't wait to do it again. Now the big question comes, how do we form our messaging? And I've asked Teresa to help us with that.
Afternoon, thank you very much. The research is showing, and this is no surprise, despite current concerns that people have about traveling, if they see a travel message, it still brings them joy. Nearly 60% of the respondents have indicated that. Half of them are opening to learning about new experiences as they want to stay closer to home and do things with friends and family. So, and the things they want to do are outdoor activities and the beach, and we happen to have that. We can accommodate them. So our message will be targeted that way. Who do they trust? Interesting here is only second to family and friends. They trust local tourisms, official local tourisms. So we have to make sure that we are on top of it and that we are following state guidelines for safety. They're looking to us to do that. The tone of the message is very important. People don't want to be talked at. They want to be talked with. And so the message is a little softer. It's honest and friendly and humble, but inviting them when they're ready. What they don't want to hear is, they don't want to hear something authoritative that kind of gets in their face and tells them what to do. So the key takeaways really are, travel ads will be received with the right message and tone, and travelers trust DMOs, but we have to adhere to the safety guidelines. So, and we are doing that. And I think we're going to move into forecast and let Glenn cover that.
Absolutely. So this is from the STR folks. And well, it's a little difficult to see it, I know, and that's the worst thing you should say. But anyway, we're at the line, the vertical line there. They see occupancy kind of plateauing, generally building back up into April of 21. They see the average daily rate, though, is going to have a little more, bump to it and get back up to some reasonable areas there. And they even talked about and post some other things that have happened there as it was. And they do see demand really peaking in April of next year for that. Now, how do we build confidence? And as we said, it's this safety stuff. And we've talked about what Hilton is doing. We've talked about what some of the other groups are doing. And, we saw Rick on TV talking about over what he's doing, at his place as it was. And Lynn Minges, the president of the North Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association, was with the governor earlier and talked about the Count on Me program that's basically out there to get certified that your restaurant, your hotel is doing safe things and that you have taken special training on this. She spoke on this matter and she was quite adept at it. This is real easy to do. You know, we do have a restaurateur with us here, but, you know, the individual employees can go, they can take this thing, their managers can do it, and then that lists the restaurant, which right now we only have 2 restaurants listed in Onslow County as having taken the training, of their managers having taken the training. What we're proposing to you today is to endorse a project that we have that would say, we would like to take $500 and give the first 10 managers that take the training and do through this, post social media showing this Count on Me badge and the whole 9 yards and everything, key to the name of their facility, and go from there as to rewarding them. So we can kind of seed the pot to say, you know, here's how you can do. And because it's going to be that individual manager is going to have to sit there and take this course. And it's not very long, but, you know, it does require attention, that you could be doing something else, but it does give you that count there. They also have a part where you can do it as a citizen and say, I take the pledge to do my part when I go to a restaurant, when I stay at a hotel, and I'll do responsible things on there. And you all can do that too. They even let you put your name on the little badge there, and you can download that badge and upload it to thing. We'd like to hear what you think about that idea, and if you think that's a good idea to use some of that funds to do that purpose.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Well,
Yeah.
we have always, we've always said that we are a proactive group, so that's the first time I'm hearing about this, but certainly to encourage professionals to do that, that should be part of our mission. And so I support that.
I will say, I did call Lynn Minges. She's very excited about us. We're the first ones that have called to offer this as a project to do. The hotels will be open for you to get doing it. When is it? It's like
I
2
think
weeks or so.
next
It's
week,
not,
maybe.
it's not ready now. They're doing a whole nother section for hotels. So they will get this certification too. So we could help with that and maybe even do a second one at that point.
And
Who's
they
going
don't have
to,
to be members of the association.
Oh, that's right. This is
So
open
it's
to
for
every-
every
Yeah.
business,
Everyone.
every
Yeah.
restaurant.
who's going to monitor this? Who's going to?
Well, we will have specific that they have to post on social media with a hashtag, so we'll catch it that way, and they'll let us know.
But I mean,
We'll have an email, we'll have everything a part of it, and we'll have a way to pay them.
To validate it.
Not for hotels, right?
Say again?
Currently, there's nothing for the hotels yet.
At this moment, but they are
It's
working on
coming
that.
though, it's coming.
ELRA,
Yeah, NCLRA, yeah.
no, really, what I'm asking is if we put the money out there,
Yes.
how do they apply and who's monitoring that?
We'll get information back from Lynn Minges, you saw that slide, that came
Right.
from her database. So she knows who's done it and completed it. She did indicate that there may be a couple of people who have done it in Onslow County, but they didn't record who they were. So,
Their
we
business, what business they were
what business,
associated with.
yes. So we would want to push that out locally, digitally, and get everyone's help in the community and try to get this word out, and then see who would bite on that. But we would have hard data that would show that they did it and they completed it.
I'm all for it.
Is that a motion?
It is a motion.
second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay. Well, that's it. We will say that the state did issue a travel advisory, which, you know, it doesn't hurt us, doesn't help us. It's just saying this is, it's not yet the time. And, we put it up on our page too, so everybody can read it. It says travel safely as it is there.
Okay?
So we're
Thank
going to
you.
speed through now, our projects on this strategic initiative. For Memorial Day, we did have the virtual observance. This was an interesting experience to do it like this without the 300 to 400 people that normally attend this. It was very much appreciated by the Military Order of the Purple Heart, the Beirut Memorial Chapter 642. And they were enthusiastic about it. The Coastal Carolina Veterans Cemetery was also very excited about having us there and doing this matter at that time too. So we paid tribute to more than 340 names that were read that day, and the bell was struck for each one of them. And we even flew the drone to get some shots out there that we used as part of our virtual coverage. For Veterans Day Tribute Weekend Year 2, we're still working on expanding our reach and some additional activities. Obviously, part of the problem is we we're still not knowing what exactly we're gonna be doing for COVID-19, so that's part of it. Now, quickly,
So quickly, speaking of COVID-19, so we talked about last time the events that were canceled. There's two missing from here, and that would be the Earth Day event with Sturgeon City and the Arts Council event that was planned for the same day. So while we were in talks and I was meeting with them and planning with them, obviously they had to call the event, so we're not doing that. But we will be working, we're working currently on a couple of the events for the fall. So we'll see how they go.
okay. Well, now we have our partners, and if we could have that next group come in, we'll, just let them.
Teresa, thank you so much.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if we have Paulo first. We're gonna bring those in here.
Matt Paula?
Hello, authority members and chairman. Thank you for having me. I'm going to keep this very brief today. I just wanted to update you guys and let you know that the Sturgeon City staff returned to our site starting on May 11th. So we have been back there analyzing all of the guidelines from the CDC and of course from the state level in terms of gathering limits and recommendations for day camp programs. We are excited to announce that we will be offering, we've actually started offering programs for this summer. So we actually had our first group of homeschool students back on site today, obviously a much smaller group and following all recommended guidelines. And we are also launching our mobile planetarium programs for individual families at a time as an option for folks to start being able to get out and do some programs. And we're continuing to analyze further guidelines and work to reschedule and schedule upcoming events out into potentially later 2020 and definitely into 2021. So that's the short version of what we've been up to.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions for Paul? Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paula.
Scott,
I'll be less than a minute.
time's up.
Get back in those shorts, right?
You're on the clock. Thank you for that report. That was good.
So we have temporarily moved our July 10th Freedom Fight Boxing. The tentative date is October 30th. The reason that is tentative is it'll depend on the venue, which kind of leads into the next part. Football Jamboree is still a big question mark if you followed what's going on in the state this week. They don't know what's going to happen with football, so we may or may not have that. Currently, October 30th works, but if they shift football schedules, October 30th may not work. So that's up in the air. And then you've probably all seen that ECI was officially canceled for this year. I know our restaurants and hotels hate it, but it was the decision that Wells had to make for this year. That's my report, sir.
Any questions? Definitely a change in times, but we'll be back. We'll be back stronger. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Salem?
All right, I'll just give a real quick update. So on our website, we've included a new webpage called Safe Travel, and we've taken any of the hotels that have updated anything that they're doing extra. We've included links to those and linking out to those hotels. We're also including general updates about attractions, events, and restaurants on our website, and most of them are kind of opening back up at 50%, so we're just directing them to our main restaurant page. And from there, we're also including the Count on Me again, promoting that. And we've really tried to work on creating a Facebook page for our tourism partners to try to share information on that. So it's a private page that we're trying to communicate anything that the state's putting out or any programs that they're doing. And of course, we're still promoting on Facebook and doing some virtual tours right now.
Okay. Thank you so much, Salem. Any questions?
No, thank you, Salem.
So, thank you so much for the update.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Gail?
Yes, sir. Included in your package is your quarterly report for March of 2020, which would be 75% of our year. And as you can see, our revenue is a little bit above the 75% mark, but hold on to your hats. This month was not good. And the administration is at 68%. The tourism promotion is at 134. We've got a budget amendment to correct that at the end of the meeting. And the tourism related, we haven't spent anything. I believe that the only thing we will spend out of that money this year will be the payment on the Sturgeon City of the 150. but we are still 315,000 to the good.
Can you recap that April then? You said April,
That's what's next on the agenda.
okay, never mind. Go ahead.
Now the bad news.
Do you want to talk about the budget amendment now?
Okay, I'm sorry, I had to get
That's
to the
okay.
right page. I had the other budget amendment that we didn't do. We'll need to appropriate $200,000 in fund balance for this year, for the,
Shifting it over? Okay.
it's just last year money we're spending
Right.
this year.
Now, that is part of what we plan to do with the spending plan. This now follows that and says we're bringing forward the
Move
two
that
hundred
money
thousand.
over. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to, move that $200,000.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second,
Second.
in discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay,
Now, tax collections.
Yeah, there we go.
all right, so as you can see on your screen, these are the tax collections so far this year. The blue line is FY '20, the gold colored line is FY '19. As you can see, we're way down. And then the rolling 12 months, a similar picture. April was definitely not a good month. I think that was the lowest month we've had
Ever.
since the beginning of time.
Thus, our decision-making process.
Correct. And then we have.
Everything is relevant.
Right. We have your collections to date. It's still not looking terrible. We may actually hit the budget. We were conservative in the budget number. I think it was 975. We're at 921.
Okay.
And we've got a couple of months left to go, so there's hope yet that we will meet that. And then this is the collections by area. You can see all of them are down. And the 920 is the total compared to last year's total for the whole 12 months of 1.5.
So about 26% reduction,
Right,
which really holds true to some businesses that have been open in the 30 to 35 to 40% reduction. So,
We've been hit, but not as bad as some people.
exactly.
So,
Any questions for Gail regarding the collections? And Gail, do we have a 90% collection rate, 95, 98?
to
Any
tell you the
issues?
truth, I don't know.
John?
at the last look, there was only 2 facilities that had not paid on time.
Okay, so about
but,
98,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
I might just do real fast on the census there. There's still time to fill it out. You can do it there, by just going online. If you don't have it, you just enter your address and take care of it. Right now, Onslow's at 67%, Pitt's at 54%. Jacksonville right now we're at a self-response at 51%. And of course, we've been challenging Greenville and we are above them, so we like that. But June 1st is when, they're gonna put people back out on the street, remind people if they don't want people coming to their homes and haven't filled out their census, they're gonna start during the month of June to do that as it was. It'll take a couple days to get them
To get it
deployed and
all
do all the stuff as it was. And for the One City moment, we just think that activity at the Memorial Gardens was definitely a One City moment out there with just a few people, but we knew there were a lot of people watching and a lot of people caring about that.
They did a great job. And you guys did a great job getting it out there. You could see the people that are watching. There was a lot of people that were watching it.
Got shared
Maybe
a lot.
that's our future, just virtual. You know, we just won't leave the house, we can just live life virtually, you know? So, any director's comments?
Stay safe.
And Glenn, one question regarding the census 2020, since, obviously there's a lot of people that are still currently, not employed. Are they still looking for help with that, or?
Actually,
No.
they are going to announce how much help extra they're gonna need, because as you recall, they hired people, and then they put them all on hold, and they might have lost some people. So
Okay.
as I understand it, they're gonna do another round, but they haven't mentioned what the numbers are.
Okay,
So
perfect.
watch for it.
Anything else? Again, thank you for what you all do, and we appreciate it. And without any further business, I'll entertain a motion to.
Yes, just one thing before I forget. Glenn, I just want to compliment you and the staff. understanding that times are so hard for us with COVID and collection and everything like that. But just the perseverance and just the work that you guys have done through this in light of the 26% reduction and everything else that's going on, I really, really think that's the mark of a great staff. It's not when you're up, because last year we were up. We were up tremendously, and everything was rosy. Well, we're down now, but that's when the tough really, that's when you really get going. So I just want to say I appreciate the positive spin and, just keep up the good work
Well, I'm not
despite
the only one doing it.
situation.
You've got all these people
I
over here.
just said you and your staff.
Back of the wall
I
there.
really, really think, I just have to say that because I know how difficult it is as a small business owner, how tough it is to make it through times like this. And you just have to keep plugging away, keep the faith.
Thank you.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn, all in favor? Okay,
Aye.
meeting's adjourned. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes.